And welcome back, everybody, to the episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports, episode 67. Rick K back with you for another week of exciting New York action. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving with your loved ones, good food, good family time. Not a lot of good football. Giants lose again. Jets play a good first half, and they still lose. I don't know where the winning is coming from, but we're going to dive into more craziness from losses and things like that. We'll talk about the Rangers snapping a 5-game losing streak, but the core might be getting close to being broken up. Is it time to do that as they get set for a matchup with the Devils tonight at Madison Square Garden? The Knicks have a little bit of a rough time. Mikal Bridges gets benched, but then finds a way to bounce back yesterday. The Red Bulls are in the MLS Cup Final. We will preview that matchup on Saturday against the Los Angeles Galaxy, which will be a fun matchup between offense and defense. We'll, of course, pay tribute to the late, great Lou Carnesecca, who passed away this weekend, an iconic coach in New York sports. We'll talk Syracuse's comeback over Miami. We'll talk Army in the American Championship game. We'll talk Rutgers. We'll talk Cortland. We'll talk all those things coming up next here on New York State Sports. We will see you in just a minute. And of course, welcome back to episode 67, New York State of Sports on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky K back with you for our first show here in December as we get close to wrapping up 2024 and what will be almost 1 year here at the network. I think 1 year will be around late January. So we've had a lot of fun over the last year or so, but still haven't gotten any winning football. That remains to be seen. I want to remind you, of course, you can follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at IE Sports Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube page. All of our videos are there. Every live show we do is over there. We get some cool new shows that have debuted over the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun. Every show, of course, has a page on iesportsradio.com. You go to iesportsradio.com/New York State of Sports. You can learn more about me. You can learn more about the show itself. If you miss any portion of the show or you just want to hear me say stuff again, download the podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the places you get your podcast. Be sure to follow me on X at Rickinator555, or you can follow the show at NY State Sports IE. And if you feel free to comment throughout the next hour plus, share your comments here on YouTube. Be happy to hear from you. Get your thoughts on, of course, some of the big topics in New York sports as we lead every Monday during the football season. The Giants and Jets, although we're getting really close to not leading with them because they're not really giving us anything to talk about. I mean, we harp on the same issues every week, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I found a cool stat over the weekend that I found very interesting revolving the Giants and the Jets in terms of their ineptitude. And it is something to behold when you talk about just from U Stadium. In the last 50 days, the Yankees and the Mets have more wins than the Jets and the Giants. I mean, that's how bad the football teams are. But we'll dive into that coming up next. We'll take our first commercial break here from some sponsors. and we will talk football after the break. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Of course, thank you to our great sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Great snack for give to your loved ones over the holiday season. Of course, you're playing those holiday parties or getting those holiday cards. Be sure to go to Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Get that awesome seal on those invitations and cards. And, of course, IE Sports Radio. Some good stuff going on. Follow get some cool shirts, cool hats. We got all those fun stuff. Be sure to go to the website, iesportsradio.com today. We're just got some commenters. Terry Rodriguez is here, our host of our SoCal show. Good afternoon, Ricky. Have an awesome show. And we'll get into the soccer in a little bit, but that should be a fun MLS Cup final. After the Dodgers beat the Yankees in the World Series, you get LA versus New York in a final once again, so it should be a lot of fun. But we'll start with the football. Giants Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Wasn't sure which bad New York football team to lead with today, but we chose the Giants. And look, the game wasn't a blowout like I would think. It wasn't entertaining either. I mean, the fact that you had Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, basically the highlight of that game was them trying to eat turducken in the fourth quarter. And they came out of the halftime saying the last 10 minutes of that second quarter was an eyesore. I mean, neither team could move the ball. It was a battle of backup quarterbacks, which you expect. Giants, of course, did not go with Tommy DeVito, who had a forearm injury. DeVito said that he would have gone if it was a Sunday game, but since it was a Thursday game, Giants turned to Drew Lock, and he turned to Drew Lock basically the day before. And I always thought that Lock should have got the job instead of DeVito. I mean, I think we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks as to why Tommy DeVito got the job and not Lock in that instance. And for the most part, I thought Drew Lock, look, he had some bad plays. He had the pick six by Overshown in the second quarter. He was 21 of 32, 178 for the game. But he had those big rushes, had a 28-yard carry down to the goal line that led to the Tyrone Tracy touchdown that gave the Giants their first lead since week 6. I mean, that's amazing in of itself. But Giants were in this game in the first half, and then things just went downhill. From that point, Dallas's offense got hot in the third quarter. You had the 2-yard touchdown by Brandon Cooks. Rico Dowdle runs into touchdown. And it basically started, Giants had the fumble by Lock on the strip sack in the third quarter. They led Dallas going up 10. Giants then go 3 and out. Dallas scores again. And even though the Giants got the game within a touchdown in the fourth quarter, you knew this game was over at 27-10. But the problem is for the Giants, you have the same issues with this team. Every big play they seem to have had was a penalty. They had 13 penalties for 98 yards in this game. Like, Lock would hit a screen to Singletary or Tracy, penalty. Would hit Neighbors for first down, penalty. Their offensive line's a mess. And now, yes, they have injuries, but Evan Neal looked awful against Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons had a sack and a half. Dallas had 6 sacks in the game. It just wasn't good. Giants were 3 for 12 on third down. They couldn't move the football. It didn't matter who was playing quarterback. And I think that's what we've learned about this team is it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. There's so many problems. And it gets worse for this team because Dexter Lawrence, one of their best defensive players, hurts his elbow. He's out for the season. Theo Johnson ends up throwing his sneaker against the wall after the game because he knows he's done. He hurts his foot. He's done for the season. And Theo Johnson was having a pretty good rookie season. I mean, it wasn't quite what Neighbors has been, but 5 catches, 54 yards in the day on Thursday. Johnson had 29 catches, 330 yards on the season in his rookie year. Would love to see him get a more focal point in the offense in year 2. We saw Malik Neighbors have 8 catches for 69 yards. Clearly, there was a reason to get him the ball. You saw him get basically all the targets in the first half, making up for last week against Tampa Bay. But you take Theo Johnson out of this lineup, and there's not much really to write home about. I mean, you're following Tracy and you're following Neighbors, but Robinson's kind of been hit or miss. Darius Slayton's there, but what's his future with the team? And you start to look for storylines over the last 5 games because there's not getting much there. And the storyline right now is the Giants have the best odds of the number 1 pick. Reason being, the Jaguars play the Titans and the Raiders 3 times in the next 5 games. So with Jacksonville and Tennessee playing each other, that's going to eliminate a team. Vegas playing Jacksonville toward the end before Christmas. That's going to eliminate one of those teams. And really the only threat the Giants might have at that point would be the Patriots. Patriots, who of course ruined their chance of getting Drake May last year, have 4 really tough games after their bye. They have Arizona, 2 at the Bills, and the Chargers. I don't see them winning any of those games because they couldn't beat Indianapolis yesterday. So right now, if you're the Giants, you're like, you have to pay attention to college, and you pay attention to Shedeur Sanders, who had a great game against a bad Oklahoma State team, and you pay attention to Cam Ward, who we'll talk about later, when Miami had a really good start against Syracuse and couldn't close. But it's clear the quarterback is going to be the thing that starts the fix. But the quarterback isn't going to be the thing that completes the fix. There's one thing you look at with the Commanders, and you look at Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels helps a ton, but they've also built a good structure around Jayden Daniels and built a good coaching structure in place with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. But you look at the Giants and just how bad they've fallen. If they lose the Eagles in Week 18, and they're going to lose unless the Eagles decide not to play for anything, they're going to go winless in the division. And you add another reason as why Dable and Shane should stay. They can't beat the Cowboys. They can't beat the Eagles. And you said this was the game, if you're going to beat Dallas, they didn't have Dak. Dak usually was the guy that beat him. And while Cooper Rush didn't look great, and CeeDee Lamb really had a couple drops. Like, Dallas didn't win this game because of CeeDee Lamb. They won this game just pounding the ball at Rico Dowdle, and they won this game just making third downs, moving the chains, doing the little things, and making plays on defense. The Giants aren't able to do that, and I think that's really what their detriment is right now, is their inability to do much of anything. Now, they'll be back at home Sunday against the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints are kind of the example of bridge quarterback and the negative it can have. The Saints have Derek Carr. They paid Derek Carr a ton of money, and Carr's battled injuries, and the Saints have been banged up. No Chris Olave, Marshawn Lattimore, they dealt away on defense. They still have Cam Jordan, that defensive line, and they gave the Rams a little bit of trouble yesterday for a good portion of 3.5 quarters. This is a game really that I don't think anybody wants to watch, even in that stadium. I mean, you have a 4-8 Saints team against a 2-10 Giant team. Saints are favored by 4.5 as of right now, but this is the last winnable game I think the Giants have. They end the year with Baltimore off the bye, Atlanta, maybe Atlanta because Kirk Cousins likes to throw the ball away, Indy at home, and then the Eagles like we talked about. But the problem is you take Dexter Lawrence out of this lineup, and Alvin Kamara is going to run roughshod on him. Like, if I'm the Saints without Taysom Hill, I just hand the ball to Alvin Kamara every play and let him go. Because I don't see how they're going to stop this Saints offense. Well, I don't see how they're going to score, period. Like, the Giants still have issues scoring. But it begs the question, if you're going to the game, like, what are you rooting for at this point with 5 games left? Are you rooting for wins? Because you shouldn't be. But you want a competent product on the field. Talk about a Giant team that's yet to win at home this year. And they only have 3 more chances to get it done. That's probably this and Indianapolis are like their one last chance to get a win at home this year. Hasn't been good at MetLife, to say the least. Wasn't good at MetLife yesterday for the Jets. It was good to start. I mean, they took on a Seahawk team that, look, Seattle's okay. Like, we had this debate yesterday on IE Sports Radio on our show page, in our show Twitter X account, was how many great teams are in the NFL. And Seattle's not bad. They're not great. They're okay. And the Jets got off to a really fast start. It was one of probably their better starts of the year, at least since that Patriot game in week 3. You have Aaron Rodgers throw the 8-yarder to Devontae Adams. Isaiah Davis gets his first touchdown as a rookie. Jets are up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. Seattle gets a score, but then the Jets come right back. And I want to give a nice shout-out to Kene Nwangwu, who had a couple of returns for touchdowns at Minnesota a couple of years ago. Jets had him on their practice squad. They call him up due to a bunch of injuries. And he gets a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He recovers a fumble on a kickoff by Seattle. Just a really good spark that Kene had yesterday. It was really one of the bright spots of the day, just to see the story and how this guy's really made an impact. But the Jets blew it when Aaron Rodgers overthrows Garrett Wilson in the red zone. Jets would have had a 27-7 lead. The very next play, former Jet and Giant Leonard Williams gets a 92-yard pick six, changes the course of the game. Jets just couldn't get out of their own way. They were committing so many bad penalties, especially in the fourth quarter. They had 12 penalties for 83 yards. I think 8 of them were in the fourth quarter. And what was embarrassing for this game is that Geno Smith led the comeback in the fourth quarter, the former Jet. Aaron Rodgers could not. Aaron Rodgers has had 5 chances this year to come from behind in the fourth quarter. Hasn't won any of them. And you hear him after the game saying there's 11 guys on the field. Sometimes I'm the one in fault, basically saying it's not my fault. Or saying it's not always my fault, but you're the quarterback. It doesn't matter if it's your fault. Even if it isn't, you still have to take the blame for it. Quarterback gets the wins, quarterback gets the losses. That is the way this game works. That is the way this narrative works. Whether you like it or not, too bad. And to see Aaron Rodgers basically not have humility in that fact that, look, his skills are deteriorating. And he actually played, I think it's like I said, pretty well first couple quarters. When's the last time you see him throw 2 touchdowns in the first quarter? He could have had 4 yesterday. And this is a Jet team that you're talking about, a team that already knows it's changing its coach, already knows it's changing its GM. And even Jeff Ulbrich yesterday was non-committal about starting Rodgers the rest of the year. He came out today saying that Rodgers will start Sunday against the Dolphins, but at this point, if you know Aaron Rodgers is not going to be your quarterback, then why are you playing him? You have Tyrod Taylor there. You could just play him the last couple of games because it's a lost product what this team has right now. And even on a day where it looked like they were going to get a win, they were playing well. They finally showed a spark, something we haven't really seen since the second half against the Texans about a month ago. And look, this offense is deteriorating. I was listening to Willie Colon yesterday on SNY talk about, well, they got Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams doesn't look like the guy they were supposed to get. They have a great running back in Breece Hall, basically, what Willie Colon was talking about. And we haven't seen Breece Hall do that much. Breece Hall was banged up going into yesterday. The Jets just refused to run the football. Hall only had 12 carries yesterday, and he had 5 yards to carry. Why not keep feeding Breece Hall some more touches? Braylon Allen's disappeared since earlier in the year. The Jets don't have an identity. And I think that falls on the quarterback. There's really you got rid of the coach, you got rid of the GM. Now everything falls on the quarterback, at least for the last 5 games. Just the way it is. You have DJ Reed, the corner, calling out the officials on X. He's going to get fined. Sauce Gardner hasn't been what he needs to be. It's been an overall regression for the Jets. It's been very disappointing to watch. And they were favored in 8 of the 12 games they played so far by Vegas. 8 of the 12 games they were favored, they are 3-9. And they might have to be bad enough to get a quarterback in this draft, at least in the first round. Right now, I think they're picking around 7th. We'll have like Tankathon watch at some point because that's how bad both these teams are. So the Jets will play again Sunday in Miami. Dolphins lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. Tua couldn't handle the cold. Tyreek Hill's gone and disappeared. At least in first half, he disappeared. Problem is the Jets, I can't see him stopping A-Chain. I can't see him stopping Jonnu Smith at the tight end position. Heading down to South Beach in December is not usually a good thing, especially with the cold weather now coming to New York. Dolphins are basically a must-win situation for their season. I can't see the Jets winning this game. They have 2 more with the Dolphins. Really, their only 2 winnable games left are the Jaguars in 2 weeks, which I don't know how anybody watches that game, and the Rams at home on the 22nd. That's the Jets' last shot at wins if they can get them. But it's been an absolute mess. And by the way, I didn't talk about this last week. I don't want to see Rex Ryan back with the Jets. I know he's been campaigning to get this job. The Jets don't need to go back to what worked in the past because it doesn't mean it's going to work now. And yes, Rex got to those championship games, but the Jets have to be innovative. The Jets have to want to advance and go with the times. Rex is not the times. Rex is good if you want to get him as defensive coordinator. Sure. But when Rex was with the Jets, their defenses were good, but their defenses always had to carry the offense. As good as Mark Sanchez was at times, and it was only at times, it was very sparingly, you never thought the offense was the reason the Jets win. The Jets need to get their offense back on track. Their defense has regressed, no doubt about it, but they have to find that next offensive mind. Now, in terms of the head coach, I think you take the best all-around candidate. I'm not looking to get that play caller, that flavor of the month kind of thing, because that's what doomed the Jets last time. Getting Saleh was defensive coordinator for the 49ers, and it just didn't work. But I get it. The Jets want the headlines. I get it. That's what he wants. He wants to own the back page. And it's really weird that Mike Tannenbaum is basically going to help this, because Tannenbaum did hire Rex. So you'd have to think Rex would be in the mix. You have to think maybe Eric Mangini might be in the mix. But that does not mean you should go back to the past. Yes, this Jets team has a really bad past, not a great moments in their past. They've had 9 straight losing seasons, which is embarrassing. But it's time to move into the future. Leave Rex to ESPN or whoever else wants to give him a shot. You want to interview him, fine. But I can't see how rehiring Rex does any good on the field. It does great off the field. It's basically Woody and Rex would be like Steinbrenner and Billy Martin. But I don't see where it fits from an on-field perspective. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk hockey and the Rangers' dysfunction. It's time to break up their core. We'll talk Knicks. And we will talk the Mets making their first big signing of the winter. It's not Juan Soto, but it's an interesting one that could help their rotation. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. We'll be right back in just a minute.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS. The SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And of course, welcome back to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. Ricky K here with you as we transition from the football field to the hockey rink. We start with the Rangers, who did snap their 5-game losing streak on Saturday in dramatic fashion. Capo Caco scores a power play goal with 24 seconds left to lift the Rangers from what would have been a disastrous game. They were up 3-1 at the end of 2 periods. Montreal scores 2 goals in the third against Jonathan Quick to tie the game. Rangers don't get a break. They get a 4-minute power play at the end of the game, and they're able to take advantage of it. But the Rangers play as a whole has been terrible. And I'm going to start to blame the players for a lot of this because they've got the benefit of the doubt for a long time. They benefited from 2 coaching changes. Of course, the hiring of Gerard Gallant and the hiring of Peter Laviolette. And over the course of these last 5 games, especially this past week, when you look at some of the lackluster performances that they had, whether it was the disastrous getting down 4-0 against Edmonton, whether it was against a Blues team that just fired their coach, it was 2-2 at the end of 2 periods, and the Blues were dominant in the third. Like the Rangers showed no life in that third period. You know, I was reading a quote from Braden Schneider talking about how the team is basically grabbing the sticks too tight. Then they have a 3-1 lead against Carolina 2 days later. Brett Boer gets his first NHL goal. They had a 3-1 lead, 3-2 lead going into the third. They lose that game. They go to Philly on Friday, and they don't have a shot for the first 12 minutes of the game. Not even one shot. And the Flyers win that game 3-1 in a game they could have easily won 6-7-1 if Igor wasn't great in net. And you always say that a team, you learn more about it through adversity. And there was the report when we left last week that Chris Drury was looking to shake things up. And it looked like either the 2 guys that were maybe on the move were Jacob Trouba, who's been put on the block since the summer. The Rangers have to find something to do with Jacob Trouba. I get he's the captain. I get you don't want to, but they had no problem doing with Barclay Goodrow, getting him to San Jose. They need to find a resolution to this Trouba stuff, whether it's getting a trade or just waiving him. Because to have your captain on the trade block this long doesn't help anybody. And if you truly want him gone, then you have to find a way to get rid of him. Obviously, the defense has been weak this year. They keep trying to find right combinations, and it just hasn't worked. And now the answer is, do you trade Chris Kreider? And that's why I ask, is it time to break up the core? The core is giving you every explanation as to why you should. And it's tough to – here's the problem, though, that Drury has, and a problem with that, whoever leaked that report, is it's tough to break up a core and then still get better in a year where you have to win the Stanley Cup, or at least get to the Stanley Cup. And right now they're basically, if you count the overtime loss, they're 13-10. That's not good enough. They were dominant at the beginning of the year, and you've seen their awards. I mean, Igor Shesterkin has saved a ton of shots. He's faced a ton of shots, but he's allowed 3+ goals in 4 of his last 5 games for a guy that's trying to get a lucrative contract. I mean, really, outside of Will Cully, who had 2 goals on Monday, and you've seen this young line come up with a spark. I mean, Philip Hedl was out for the last week or so. But Cully has been their best player on even strength. Chris Kreider is up until the other day. I'm not sure if he still didn't have an assist this year. Mika Zibanejad has not been great. And this is a group that they relied upon. This is a Ranger team that went into the offseason knowing that. And the only moves they made was acquiring Riley Smith and Sam Carrick. They didn't really do anything to shake up this group. They didn't do anything, and it was a bluff. And the Rangers didn't respond to it. They lost to a team that, like I said, the Blues, who were terrible, got rid of their coach. And they look like the team that they're getting out physicaled. And that's a problem. And it's not the coach. I mean, yes, they brought in Laviolette to kind of be that veteran coach to guide this team through. But at some point, the players have to take the blame for this. Like, all right, you get rid of Laviolette mid-season. What does that really do? Does nothing. So this is where Drury has to make that big move. That's what he's paid to do. He didn't make the big move at the deadline last year. And is Chris Drury capable of making that big splash? We're going to find out. But it's been an absolute mess that this Ranger team has been. And it's going to take a lot more than just one win against a bad Montreal team to really show what this team can do. It starts this week. They host the Devils tonight. Devils have been really good, especially on offense. Their power play has been great as of late. They host Pittsburgh on Friday, and they host the Kraken on Sunday. They host the Blackhawks on Monday. You have 4 straight home games. They just got to respond. Their fans are going to let them hear about it if they don't. As we head toward mid-December, I mean, you guys are seeing what this team is all about. And I have a tough time believing that this core is going to exactly figure it out and respond because they haven't showed it. Think about it. They were a non-Chris Kreider hat trick away in Carolina in the playoffs last year from potentially blowing a 3-game-to-none lead. People forget that. So can this team respond? We'll see, but they have to prove it. Devils have been very fun to watch. I mean, Sheldon Keefe has done a good job with this group. We talked about the other team that's facing the Rangers tonight, and it's safe to say New Jersey's probably been overlooked. Now, they played 3 more games than everybody else has in the Metro, but they're only a point behind for the lead. And Jack Hughes has made more history. Saturday against the Capitals, he passed Scott Gomez for the 4th most 3+ point games in Devil history. That's 32 3+ point games in his career. And the Devils, we said, when they score, they usually win. You look at this week, they got shut out by the Blues on Wednesday, which was disappointing. Blues must have loved playing here in New York, in the New York, New Jersey area. Devils had beaten Nashville last week. They win on Black Friday 5-4 for the Red Wings. A dramatic game in Detroit where they get a goal from Hughes, an assist, a goal from Heischer, an assist. And in a high-scoring game, down 3-2 at the beginning of the second period, they find a way to win. Then Saturday, in a high-scoring game with Washington, Capitals have just been really good even without Ovechkin. They win 6-5. Devils had rallied to tie it at 4 in the third, but then the Capitals scored 2 goals within seconds of each other, mid-third period, and that ended up being the difference in this game. And we've clearly seen that the issue is going to be when you look at Jake Allen and Markstrom. I mean, Markstrom hasn't been fantastic. I mean, Allen has been okay, but the goalie situation is going to be interesting to watch because this is a Devils team that has given up multiple goals in essentially since November 12th. The opponent has scored more than 1 goal against this team. And defense and goaltending is going to be interesting because they're going to score with anybody. We knew that from last year. Devils will play the Rangers tonight, as I said, in the Garden. They'll play the Kraken on Friday, and they will host the Avalanche on Sunday. We go to the Islanders, and the Islanders had, I think, some of the issues they've had from last year has been kind of dooming them in terms of holding leads in the third period. They have not been a good third period team, and it's a group that right now has to figure things out and figure it out fast. They are tied with Pittsburgh for the worst record in the Metro. And you look at this past week, they do get the shutout from Sorokin, but you look at the Washington game, had a 4-2 lead at the end of the second period, ended up losing that game in overtime. So instead of getting 2 points, you get 1. They played Boston on Wednesday, 3-3 going into the third. Boston scores 3 goals, wins that game. You look at the Detroit game. Islanders led 2-1 after 2. They lose that game. So many problems the Islanders had with Patrick Waugh last year. Doing them again. Their power play has also been terrible. I get they don't have Barzal. I get they don't have Duclair. I get this is a different team. They have 9 power play goals. Tied with the Blues for the worst in the NHL. They've got to find a way to score in the power play. Despite all the bad stuff, Ilya Sorokin did get his first shutout of the year. That was the win on Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres to wrap up November. Sorokin had 29 saves in this one. Anders Lee had a power play goal. Holmstrom, who's played well the last couple games, he picks up a goal. He had 2 in this game, actually. He's got 7 on the season, so he has been one of the better players as of late. The Islanders will go to Montreal on Tuesday. They'll host the Kraken on Thursday, and they will host Carolina Saturday and then go to Ottawa on Sunday. So they have 4 games this week. Devils and Rangers have 3, including one with each other. Very quickly with the baseball, the Mets making a move last night to improve their rotation. They signed former Yankee Frankie Montas to a 2-year, $34 million contract. His second year is a player option, which unless Montas is really great, I think he's picking up. And look, Montas is not a great pitcher. He's a back-end pitcher at best. His off-speed stuff is good. His fastball is not very good. But there's one thing you've learned with David Stearns over the last couple of weeks, or the last couple of years, I should say. is he's a guy that is going to go out there and not spend big on pitching. Last year, he took gambles on Severino. He took gambles on Manaea, and it paid off. So you're going to see Stearns do this. And when you look at the pitching market, Matt Boyd got 2 years, $29 million from the Cubs this morning. So you're going to see contracts at around this kind of money. Montas got similar money last year when he signed with the Reds. It's a depth piece. And one of the things that I want to caution people when you look at moves, especially over this next week when the winter meetings start, a week from today, don't look at moves in a vacuum. Wait till we get to spring training, and then we can really judge the totality of the offseason and somewhat grade it. Because if you're looking at Montas as the only move, then it's a fail. Because then you're putting too much reliance on Blade Tidwell, Brandon Sproat, and some of the younger pitchers in this rotation. You have to look at it. The Mets are going to get, I think, another starter, maybe two. They're probably going to look to enhance the bullpen. And, of course, the Juan Soto news, whenever that happens. So they're still in that market as long as he's available. So there's so much more that has to get done. So I'm not going to sit here and rip David Stearns for this move. Obviously, he has some guys still in Milwaukee that I'm sure helped him with the scoop on Montas, who pitched with the Brewers last year in the postseason. Mets got to him a little bit in that wild card series. So, again, this move is the first one the Mets will make. It's not the only one they're going to make. And the big news this morning, Andy Martino from SNY had all the tweets out there that essentially nobody knows where Juan Soto is going to sign, which all the rumors that you read on X, which I try to stay off, but especially when you see people talk about, oh, I heard this, and this conversation. Like, no, wait till the big reporters talk about it. That nobody knows where they're going to sign. They think Toronto's going to offer the most money. But again, I don't think Soto is choosing to go to Canada. But the Yankees and Mets are essentially all in on this. And I still think he ends up on one of those teams. I've had the Mets as the favorite. Dating back to the World Series ending. I don't see it changing. And it's one of those things where once Soto goes, then the market goes. Like Scott Boras is a lot of the pitchers that are signing early are his clients because he doesn't want to really have what happened last year with Snell and Montgomery again. You saw Kikuchi go to the Angels. Pitching is going to come off the market a little bit earlier, but until Burns and Fried are off the board, they're still elite pitchers. I just don't think the Mets are going to play in the Fried market. They might in the Burns market because of Burns' time in Milwaukee. But that's really the only thing I could really see happening. Very quickly on the Knicks, Mikal Bridges got benched in Friday's game against Charlotte. Knicks looked not great against a banged-up Hornets team, and they still found a way to win by a point, but Bridges gets benched and then responds yesterday with 31 points, 7 threes against a Pelican team that also was banged up, but has 4 wins. They've been miserable. But the Knicks did go 3-1 this week. They had a great win against the Nuggets, sandwiched in there by a bad loss against a Luka-less Mavericks team the day before Thanksgiving. But I'll take a 3-1 week anytime, and they will play Tuesday in the NBA Cup against the Orlando Magic. Knicks have to win that game to get into the quarterfinals. Magic could lose, and as long as they don't lose by 40, they're going to make it. So that should be a fun game. Orlando's been third in the East. They played in Brooklyn yesterday and got a win. It's a young team, but a team looking to take the next step, and it's a TNT kind of game. So should be a fun matchup there. And then very quickly with the Nets, I love what Brooklyn's doing. They've had a ton of injuries. Cam Thomas just gets hurt. They go out on the West Coast. We talked about the win over Sacramento. They beat Golden State as double-digit underdog, and then they beat Phoenix as a double-digit underdog. Tyrese Martin had 30 points in that game. That's the franchise record for a player on a 2-way contract. Now, they did lose to Orlando yesterday, but give Brooklyn credit for fighting. I mean, this is a group that maybe this team wants them to, the fan base wants them to tank and wants them to get some of these top players, but as of right now, they're not falling into that memo. I mean, they are 9-12, but that is right now tied for 8th in the East. And they have Chicago tonight, which is a winnable game on the road. They host Indiana Wednesday. They host Milwaukee Sunday. So there's some opportunity there for some wins, but Ben Simmons last night left the game with a knee contusion. He doesn't usually play back-to-backs, but that's the usual thing with Ben Simmons. Knicks have Orlando tonight or Tuesday night. They have the Hornets again at home on Thursday. They have the Pistons at home on Saturday, and then at the Raptors. So after Orlando, there's 3 wins right there. You're looking at maybe 16-9 at worst. This is a Knicks team that's still looking to fix some things defensively, but still some progress for sure on this Knicks squad. And we have, of course, Ralph here in the house. What's going on, Ralph? We will get into, of course, the tragic passing of Lou Carnesecca coming up later on in the show. So we'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the late, great Lou Carnesecca. We'll talk about the Red Bulls getting to the MLS Cup final, and we'll have our wrap-up show with the latest on college football and college basketball, including a really big game going on in West Point coming up on Friday. That should be a lot of fun in determining who goes potentially to the college football playoff. You're listening to New York State Sports and iSports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans. This is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all their sports. Ricky K here with you for our grab bag segment. It's usually our third segment on the show where we kind of give a quick hitters on some of the other topics in New York sports. And of course, some sad news end of Saturday night. I was out in Buffalo this weekend, was able to avoid the snow, which is pretty good. Because watch that Bills game last night, so much snow. But across my phone Saturday night, the passing of Lou Carnesecca, 99 years old, and really one of the iconic coaches in New York sports, a guy who is the face of St. John's basketball. And there was a time in the 80s, of course, I'm a St. John's alum, but I was born in the early 90s. I didn't get really a chance to see the kind of impact Lou Carnesecca could have, or did have. He was 526 and 200 at St. John's, 5 Big East titles, 2 Big East tournament titles, of course, the coach of the Final Four team in 85. And this guy never had a losing season as the coach. And that's a big deal when you think about Lou Carnesecca being really helped get the Big East off the map, and was a guy that's just known for his fun personality, even in his older age. Like, this guy, when you watch games on TV or you're at the game and you see Lou on the Jumbotron, and being a student myself and seeing when Lou got put on the Jumbotron at games, you couldn't help but love the man. I mean, the guy Rick Pitino even talked about saying out on Saturday, we lost an iconic St. John's man. His coaching expertise was as good as anyone in basketball. The man he was surpassed that. Rest in peace, Louie. We will miss you so much. Hall of Famer back in 1992. Look, Rick came here, and a lot of fans that I saw was like, you know what? I think Lou wanted. It was good to see that, even though that St. John's hasn't gotten to where it wants to get to just yet, for Lou to at least see Rick Pitino get a chance to coach here. And it's something that St. John's fans wanted for a long time. To get a chance to do that the last couple of years, I think, had to be a good thing for him. But it's a loss for sure. And you know those players are going to honor Lou as best they can the rest of the year. They will host Kansas State on Saturday. It'll be the first game at Carnesecca since Lou's passing, and it will be an emotional scene at that building, and I think a raucous scene at that building to celebrate that man, because he absolutely deserves every celebration given to him. So our thoughts and prayers are with the Carnesecca family, with the St. John's family. Definitely a really sad day, but a good time to remember a great coach and a great man in Carnesecca. So St. John's did beat Harvard Saturday night. It was their first game since the Bahamas tournament. Devion Smith did not play. Rick Pitino mentioning the day before that it was going to be up to the players whether Smith would play. He did some things on the court and off the court in Bahamas that was not good. That's not a good thing for St. John's either. The fact that as a senior leader, that a senior transfer, that happens, that's not a good thing. Hopefully Smith can recover. But what's worse for St. John's is the Big East looks terrible. The Big East does not perform well in these big feast week tournaments. UConn went 0-3 out in Maui, to the point where Dan Hurley said that he might never do one of those 3-game tournaments again, which is sour grapes. And I thought Hurley didn't handle himself well. Really, outside of Marquette and DePaul, Butler got a win over Mississippi State. But the Big East, if they want to get all these bids in the tournament and trying to recover from last year, this is not the way to do it. And that's going to hurt St. John's in the conference, because there's not going to be opportunities to get those big wins. Maybe UConn's a big win, Marquette's a big win, but Creighton's not been in what people have hoped for. They've been a disappointment. Maybe Xavier, but Villanova's been a disappointment. Seton Hall lost to Monmouth on Saturday, and Monmouth was 0-8. Seton Hall is probably one of the worst power conference team right now. And that's not good for Shaheen Holloway. So beating Seton Hall in the past would be a good win. Not going to be this year. In fact, it'd be one of those games you can't lose. So St. John's going to regret wasting those opportunities against Baylor and against Georgia to get wins. Because right now their best wins, Virginia. Even beating Kansas State Saturday in the Big East Big 12 Challenge is a quad 3 win. Like it's not good enough to really enhance your NCAA tournament resume. You just can't lose it. In terms of the other Big East team, we mentioned Seton Hall and their loss. They will play NJIT on Wednesday. It's 8:30 tip, and then they will play Sunday at noon Eastern against Oklahoma State. That's part of the Big 12 Big East Challenge. I was very impressed by Rutgers out in Vegas. They only won one game. They beat Notre Dame in overtime, and Dylan Harper, 30-plus points in back-to-back games. He took over and was really impressive. And Rutgers held its own against Alabama. That was a fun game on, I think it was Friday. No, it was Saturday. Saturday, Rutgers played at Texas A&M. It was a really close competitive game. A&M led by 6.5, but Ace Bailey had 24 points and 10 rebounds. He had a strong game. I thought Williams is going to be a key. Jeremiah Williams going to be a key third piece. Played well. He had 20, but Harper was 6 for 20. He had 18 points. Not the kind of game that he had against Notre Dame or against Alabama. The game they lost 95-90 a few days ago. Harper had 37 points, was 15 of 16 from the line. Alabama couldn't stop him. And when you have Harper and Bailey go for 59 points, you should win. But they were 2 for 13 from 3. And you look at the Scarlet Knights, those are the kind of games, like, if you want to get far in this tournament or get to an NCAA, like, Harper and Baylor are going to be guys you don't want to play in March. But Rutgers still doesn't have that signature win just yet. They have the bad loss at Kennesaw State, but they haven't had the big win. Now, they will start Big Ten play Saturday. They're at Ohio State. And then they will host Penn State Tuesday or next Tuesday. So they have two Big Ten games, and they have Seton Hall, Princeton, and then Columbia. Columbia is undefeated. They haven't really played anybody outside of Villanova, but that would be an interesting matchup for sure. Moving over to, well, let's do soccer first. Congrats to the New York Red Bulls. They advanced to the MLS Cup final, first time since 2008. And what's interesting about that moment is the Red Bulls in 2008 won the Western Conference back then, which I don't really get why that was a thing. I'd have to really look that up, but that was weird that the conference realigned that way. But first time they are in the MLS Cup final. Andres Reyes, a goal in the 47th minute on a header up near the post. Good setup by John Tolkien on the free kick. And look, you got to love the fight of this Red Bulls team. Sandro Schwartz has them playing extremely well defensively. Carlos Coronel, 3 straight shutouts in this postseason. And this is a Red Bull team that's had a lot of history. And to find their way back here in a year they weren't supposed to be here. Again, they're the 7th seed. This is the lowest seed to ever make the MLS Cup final. They will play Saturday in LA against the Galaxy. And the Galaxy have scored a lot of goals, 16 goals in this MLS Cup playoffs. They do have an injury. One of their better midfielders, Puig, is out with a torn ACL. We'll see how that impacts this group. But the Red Bulls have had that mentality of, why can't we? And when you look at a guy like Emil Forsberg, who's had such an impact, this is a Red Bull team that was getting a lot of draws and couldn't get wins down the stretch. And they have nothing to lose in this game. I mean, they could go in there and knowing, hey, we've got a good goaltender. We can make plays. Our designated players are performing well. Reyes is the guy that's played well in the postseason for them. An opportunity to make things happen. And on the other side of New York, they've had a coaching change as well. Nick Cushing was fired by NYCFC. Cushing was the guy that, again, took a lot of criticism early in the year. They couldn't score a lot of goals. And despite making the playoffs and dancing around, they're looking to make a change. And we'll see what happens in terms of any big names they can get or anything of that ilk. But good luck to the Red Bulls out in California. Again, I think it'll be a matchup. If it's a low-scoring game, the Red Bulls will win. If the Galaxy can get a couple goals early, that'll help them. This is the first time these two teams have played since April of 2021. So this is a matchup we have not seen very often. Even in an expanded MLS, we just haven't seen it. Moving over to college football, Rutgers gets a big win over Michigan State, 41-14. They end their season at 7-5. They will wait to see what bowl game they go to. Remember, bowls will get announced next week, so we'll be able to preview bowl games on next week's show, which, by the way, announcement for next week's show, I don't know when it will be. It will not be at its normally scheduled time. I have some medical procedure I have to take care of, so we will announce that, of course, on X when that show will be, which will not be next Monday as of right now, or at least next Monday at noon. We'll play that by ear. Antoine Raymond had 2 touchdowns, but Astorius Kamenangai, who ends his career second in Rutgers history in rushing yards behind only Ray Rice, 27 touchdowns in his career in 52 games, and really one of the great leaders in Rutgers history. It's not known right now if he'll play in the bowl game and risk injury. He's a guy who will get drafted in the NFL, and I think really make an impact for some team as a running back. But it's good for this Rutgers team that, yes, it wasn't a great year. You could argue they should have had more wins than 7. They let some opportunities slip away, but when they were 4-4, it looked like they weren't going to a bowl game, to get the win over Maryland, to get the win over Michigan State, to get the win over Minnesota. Good way to win 3 out of 4 to end the year. You absolutely take it. So Greg Schiano will wait to see what bowl game he goes to. Also, shout out to Cortland, SUNY Cortland advancing in the Division III playoffs. They pick up a win 17-9 over Endicott. There was a dominant first half for the Dragons. They out-yarded Endicott 247-66, but Endicott was able to at least narrow the gap in the second half. Ethan Gallo, Cortland's running back, 28 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. They will play Saturday at home in the third round of the playoffs against Springfield. Springfield scored 54 points in their round 2 win over UMass Dartmouth. These two schools have not played since 2021, but Springfield's got a high-powered offense, so we'll see if Cortland's defense is able to withstand that to a degree. We mentioned Syracuse and Miami and Cam Moore at the top of the show, and they ran into a buzzsaw in the Syracuse Orange. And we mentioned on Monday's show that points were going to be at a premium in this game. It was going to be high scoring back and forth, and Miami took the lead early. It looked like they were going to run Syracuse out of the building, but Kyle McCord in the Orange stepped up. McCord 26 of 36, 380, 3 touchdowns. First Syracuse quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in a season. And you think about it, on the same day that Ohio State, where McCord transferred from, gets embarrassed at home by Michigan. That the guy basically the Ohio State fans blamed for their problems last year is the one that really upsets the whole college football playoff. That had to be redemption for him, and really was one of the better transfer quarterbacks in the country this year. And a hell of a first year for Fran Brown as head coach. This is keep in mind, a first-year coach that goes 9-3. They let opportunity slip away against Stanford. I think they really should be 10-2, but most wins for a first-year coach at Syracuse since Paul Pasqualoni in 1991. That was the last time a first-year coach has had success at the Orange for Fran Brown. With that win, it sends Clemson to the ACC championship, and Fran Brown had a fun FaceTime with Dabo Swinney after that game. So this has been a heck of a year for Syracuse. They're going to get a really good bowl game, a really good opportunity for 10 wins. They're ranked in the top 25 in the AP poll. They'll probably be ranked Tuesday when we get to the college football playoff ranking. But their defense did a great job too. Devin Grant had a scoop and score with 1:47 left in the third to give Syracuse the lead. And they'll have a new quarterback next year, but I mean, the receiving core for Syracuse, Trebor Pena, Jackson Meeks, Rondé Gadsden, even Ross Simmons had a big play for his only catch. This has been a really fun offense to cover. So we've seen the ACC have some good years. Duke, of course, had a surprising year. Pitt was surprising for the bulk of the year. SMU is in the ACC championship game in its first year. The ACC very quietly had a good year. And the SEC, meanwhile, is the one fight for playoff spots and complaining for playoff spots, and they've been average at best. But want to give some love to Fran Brown. We'll talk about his bowl game on our next show. But it should be a nice send-off for Kyle McCord. Maybe Syracuse can get the 10 wins. But the story in New York college football is Army. And I don't think it's been being talked enough at all. They end up beating UTSA on Saturday, the Roadrunners, 29-24. Bryson Daly ties the American record for touchdowns in a single season. He threw for 190 yards and a touchdown. He ran for 147 and 2 touchdowns, including both of those touchdowns coming in the fourth quarter when Army was trailing in this game. Army has 10 wins for the fourth time in school history, and 6 home games this year. They scored over 200 points. So it's been a really high octane Black Knights offense. Daly's the first player in Army history to have 900 plus yard rushing games. So why was that win so significant? It means that Army will host the American Championship because Tulane lost to Memphis on Thanksgiving, giving them 1 loss in the conference. Both these teams are already locked into the conference championship. But now Army gets a home game. Now they probably won't make the playoff because you would think the winner of UNLV Boise State is going to be the group of 5 representative. UNLV wins, you could make a case for Army because UNLV's best win outside of Boise is a 5-win Kansas team. Now UNLV scheduled better, but Army's only loss would be to a top 5 team in Notre Dame. And Tulane probably won't be ranked, but Tulane right now is 17th in the country. Like the Black Knights, I don't think get a lot of love nationally. Jeff Monken has done a really fantastic job with this group. And look, they'll get the Navy game with a chance to maybe go 12-1 in a 13-game slate. But you think about the atmosphere at West Point for an Army team in its first year in a conference. Remember, they're usually independent in football. Their first year in a conference to make a conference championship game and to host a conference championship game when they go undefeated in the regular season in the conference. That is a heck of an accomplishment. Jeff Monken, I think, needs to get National Coach of the Year votes. I don't think he'll get it. Like, I'd argue Fran Brown should get some as well. But it'll be a fun game. And they get the national televised spotlight, 8 p.m. Friday on ABC. It should be a lot of fun. And look, I hope those seniors and those players get a chance to really celebrate at Metchie Stadium. Tulane's going to be a tough offense to stop. Like, I think when you look at this Green Wave offense, it's got a couple of players to keep an eye on. Really, the running back, Mekhi Hughes, he's a sophomore, 15 touchdowns on the season. He only had 15 yards against Memphis, but before that, he had 7 touchdowns in the prior 4 games. So if you can keep Hughes' ability to not get those big runs and you make Tulane throw the football. And Mensah, who's a freshman, has had a really good year. He's had 2 touchdowns in each of the last 3 games, and he's also had 3 interceptions in his last 5. So Hughes is going to make mistakes. The key is, can Army's defense make the plays and can Daly play from ahead? Because if Army gets out to a 10-point lead or something like that, they're going to run the ball on you. And Tulane gave a lot of yards to Memphis on the ground on Thanksgiving. Can Army follow a similar formula? We shall see. But that should be a really fun atmosphere, like I said, on Friday. We'll see what bowl Army goes to if they win and they don't get to the playoff. Right now it looks like maybe the Independence Bowl. But they'll get a chance against a Power 5 to really pull an upset. And that should make it fun in of itself. So as we wrap up episode 67, again, the college football slate here in New York has been more fun than the pro slate. Because the pro slate, again, you're trying to find wins, and there's nothing there. I mean, I've been doing a show for the last month. I feel like at least for the last couple months, I've had really any good things to say about the Giants. And really, it's going to come down to we're going to start following their tank odds more than anything they do on the field, because their future is going to be more determined in January. Jets, at least we know what their future is. They're going to be coaching each camp. Don't know what the Giants, like, starting to lean and where to get rid of both. Because I can't really see the value in anything really Joe Shane has done over the last couple of years, with just earn the right to pick that next quarterback. We'll see how the Rangers respond tonight. The Guard against the Devils. Looks like Brett Berard isn't going to play. He's got an upper body issue. Riley Smith is back in the lineup. He was scratched Saturday. We'll see the high-octane Devils offense can quiet the MSU crowd. We got a big NBA Cup this game tomorrow with the Knicks and Magic. And the Knicks advance. I know it's only the in-season tournament. It doesn't mean that much of the grand scheme of things, but anytime you get more big game experience in regular season, I think you take it. And this is a really good team in Orlando. It's not the Knicks have to beat like it won't be like Detroit to get in. You got to beat a really good Magic to do it. We'll see if that does happen. Of course, we'll be talking Army in the American Championship game. Good luck to them this weekend. Good luck to Portland in the Division III playoffs. Good luck to the Red Bulls trying to make it to the MLS Cup, win the MLS Cup for the first time. It's been a really big history for the Red Bulls. So to finally get back here and get back here as an underdog, I think is what makes this story so special. So from all of us here at IE Sports Radio from New York State of Sports, I'm Ricky K, saying a great rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next time.